the hum of the engines. For me, Arthur, a data analyst by trade, it's usually a lullaby. My annual pilgrimage from New York to Los Angeles, just me, an aisle seat, and the promise of some uninterrupted rest. I settled in, closed my eyes, ready for the familiar drone to carry me away. Everything felt normal. The gentle push of takeoff, the faint smell of jet fuel, the distant murmur of conversations from fellow passengers already unwinding. I was already mentally checking off items on my vacation to-do list. Hike in Griffith Park, finally see the Hollywood sign up close, maybe even brave a celebrity tour. This was my escape, my personal reset button after months of staring at spreadsheets, until my eyes blurred, a much-needed cleanse from the relentless data points and deadlines. But this flight was different. It started subtly, a strange, almost imperceptible vibration in the floor beneath my feet, a low thrumming that felt out of place, like a discordant note in a familiar song. Then, without warning, a sudden, violent lurch that slammed me against the seatbelt, pulling me sharply back to reality, jolting every ounce of relaxation from my body. The plane groaned, a deep metallic shriek that sounded less like a machine and more like a living thing in pain, a wounded beast. It was followed by a series of unsettling jolts that made the overhead bins creak ominously, tiny puffs of dust, shaking loose from the seams. You could feel the fear ripple through the cabin, a silent wave passing from row to row, passengers exchanging wide-eyed, panicked glances, a universal understanding dawning on their faces. I looked around. The cabin crew, usually so composed, their smiles unwavering, their movements fluid and reassuring, exchanged quick, uneasy glances with each other. Their professional mask, that perfect veneer of calm, was beginning to crack, revealing something raw and deeply unsettling underneath. Genuine apprehension. Then the intercom crackled. Not the captain's usual deep, confident tone that always made you feel safe, a voice that promised control and expertise. This was a different voice, higher-pitched, trembling, barely holding it together. It was Chloe, one of the junior flight attendants, and her voice was thin with panic, the words tumbling out too fast, too desperate, lacking any of the usual protocol or composure. "Is there anyone on board with medical or technical experience?" she pleaded, her voice rising in urgency. "Please, come forward immediately." My first thought was to stay put. I was on vacation, for goodness sake, trying to escape the demands of my life, the constant need to fix things, to be the one who had answers. My brain screamed at me to stay hidden, to let someone else handle it, but the genuine, unadulterated terror in Chloe's voice cut through my desire for peace. It wasn't an announcement. It was a desperate human plea for help. I caught her eye, a silent nod confirming my willingness to help, though a cold knot was already forming in my stomach, tightening with each passing second, a premonition of what was to come. I had no idea that simple gesture, that one decision, to leave my seat, would plunge me into the heart of a crisis far above the clouds, a crisis that would forever change me, and that's just the beginning. You won't believe what happens next. If you're hooked, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the rest of this incredible story. I found myself in the galley, a cramped, utilitarian space usually buzzing with polite efficiency and the clatter of service carts, now a hub of tense whispers and strained faces. The harsh fluorescent lights seemed to hum with the palpable anxiety in the air, casting long, stark shadows. The scent of stale coffee and something acrid, maybe ozone, maybe just the raw smell of fear, hung heavy, clinging to everything like a shroud. The senior flight attendant, Isabel, a woman whose years of experience were etched in the weary. Lines around her eyes didn't waste a second. Her gaze was sharp, assessing, taking me in, measuring my readiness. "We have a critical situation, sir," she explained, her voice remarkably steady, but I could hear the faint tremor underneath, a testament to the internal battle she was fighting. "Our first officer suffered a sudden medical emergency. He's incapacitated, and Captain Reynolds, he's battling a systems failure. We're precarious." The word hung in the air, heavy and chilling, echoing the unsettling movements of the plane. Precarious. It wasn't a word you ever wanted to hear on a flight, not when you were 30,000 feet up with nowhere to go but down, despite the cold dread. That snaked its way down my spine. Despite the sudden chill that had nothing to do with the cabin temperature, I felt a strange surge of purpose. Years of paramedic training, long since retired from daily use, suddenly roared back to life in my mind. A cascade of forgotten knowledge, protocols, and instincts. The old emergency assessments, the need for quick, decisive action, how to remain calm under pressure, it all flooded back, sharp and clear, pushing the panic to the periphery. I was assigned to assist Isabel in the cabin, monitoring the increasingly anxious passengers, trying to maintain some semblance of order in the growing chaos, and relaying information to the cockpit through Isabel's hushed conversations. The whispers spread like wildfire through the cabin. Medical emergency, systems failure, what's happening? Each phrase a spark igniting further panic. You could feel the fear, thick and heavy, pressing down on everyone, almost suffocating, like a blanket woven from dread and despair. I struggled to maintain my composure, forcing myself to project a calm I didn't feel, my hands trembling slightly as I spoke to a worried mother clutching her child. I tried to offer what reassurance I could while grappling with the grim reality of our predicament, the sheer enormity of the situation. Isabel was my anchor. I watched her, her face pale, but her movements precise, her voice unwavering as she spoke to worried passengers, her smile a thin, reassuring line. Her professionalism was absolute, a fortress against chaos, even as I saw the fear flicker in her eyes, quickly suppressed like a spark extinguished before it could ignite. I drew strength from her quiet resilience, clinging to it like a lifeline in a gathering storm that seemed to be closing in from all sides, threatening to consume us all. As the hours dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity, stretching out into a vast empty space where time itself seemed to dissolve, the situation deteriorated further. The plane groaned, a shuddering beast battling against the invisible forces that held it captive, a guttural cry of metal under immense stress. We plunged into sudden violent pockets of rough air, the cabin lights flickering wildly, sometimes plunging us into momentary darkness, the unsettling silence punctuated only by gasps and muffled cries. Each sudden drop of altitude felt like a punch to the gut, stealing my breath, leaving me momentarily winded. Then Captain Reynolds's voice, strained, hoarse even, but undeniably resolute, crackled over the intercom once more. There was no sugarcoating, no attempt at false optimism, no empty promises. He laid out the facts, raw and unvarnished, the technical difficulties, the challenging weather conditions ahead, a wall of turbulent storms we couldn't avoid, a dark mass on the horizon, and the ongoing desperate efforts to stabilize the aircraft. "We're doing everything we can," he said, his voice cracking slightly, betraying a hint of his own exhaustion, his profound weariness, the immense burden on his shoulders, "and I promise you, we will get through this together." I moved through. The cabin, the sickening sounds of the straining aircraft filling my ears, groans, creaks, the high-pitched whine of stressed metal, the constant roar of the wind. I saw the diverse reactions of the passengers, a spectrum of human emotion laid bare in that confined space. Some prayed silently, their lips moving without sound, their eyes fixed on nothing, lost in their faith seeking solace from a higher power. Others wept openly, their tears carving paths through the dust on their cheeks, their sobs echoing faintly, a symphony of despair. A few, incredibly, offered whispered words of encouragement to their seatmates, a fragile thread of hope. In the deepening darkness, a testament to the unyielding human spirit, a small light in the overwhelming gloom. The captain's words, terrifying in their frankness, somehow instilled a strange sense of unity, a shared acceptance among those on board. We were all in this together now, a temporary family forged in the crucible of fear, bound by a shared desperate hope. I felt a profound, almost spiritual connection to the crew, a shared burden, a silent understanding passing between us, a mutual fight for survival as we all faced an uncertain fate. And then it happened, a moment of extreme turbulence, more violent than anything before. The plane was thrown sideways, then plummeted, a stomach-lurching drop that made us all gasp, that stole the air from our lungs. Objects flew, unsecured bags slammed into the ceiling with sickening thuds. People cried out in sharp, terrified bursts. The plane bucked and roared like a dying animal fighting its last fight, a symphony of destruction. Then a chilling silence. The intercom was dead. After Captain Reynolds's final haunting words, words I will never forget, etched into my memory, replaying endlessly, the connection was lost. We were alone, suspended between the terrifying unknown and a desperate, fading hope, adrift in the vast, unforgiving sky. The silence was deafening. What came next was even more terrifying. If you're invested in this journey, show your support by subscribing and sticking around to witness the unbelievable climax. The silence that followed was deafening, more terrifying than any alarm, any scream, any sound the dying plane could make. It stretched on, an agonizing period of pure, unadulterated uncertainty. Every second felt like an hour, each breath a conscious effort, a fight against the tightening grip of dread. Isabel and I worked tirelessly, moving through the cabin, our movements precise and practiced, despite the uncontrollable trembling in our hands, the cold sweat beating on our brows. We comforted shaken passengers, some hyperventilating, struggling for air, their eyes wide with unseeing panic, others pale and withdrawn, eyes wide with shock, staring blankly ahead. We prepared them for an emergency landing we weren't even sure would ever come, trying to project a confidence that was slowly bleeding out of us, a false front to hold back the tide of despair. The cabin was filled with an almost suffocating quiet, punctuated only by the occasional violent jolt of the plane and the whispered, desperate prayers of the passengers, a low, collective hum of fear. The tension was unbearable. Every minute felt like an eternity, a slow, agonizing crawl towards an unknown fate, towards whatever awaited us on the ground, and then a miracle. A faint, almost imperceptible glimmer of light appeared through the thick, swirling clouds below us, the distant glowing pinpricks of an emergency runway, a beacon in the storm. Hope, fragile but undeniably real, sparked to life in every eye, a tiny, defiant flame in the vast darkness. A collective gasp swept through the cabin, followed by a wave of hushed, reverent relief, a release of pent-up emotion. The landing was violent, a jarring series of bumps and scrapes that rattled every bone in my body, sending shockwaves through the fuselage. It was a symphony of screeching metal and strained groans that made my teeth ache, a symphony of violence and survival. But the plane, against all odds, held together. It hit the ground hard with a sickening thud, but it hit the ground. It was down. The relief that washed over us was overwhelming, a tidal wave of raw, unfiltered emotion, tears mixed with shouts, gasps of disbelief, a beautiful, chaotic cacophony of gratitude and sheer, unadulterated joy as the emergency slides deployed and passengers streamed out into the cool, pre-dawn air. A sense of profound exhaustion settled over me, a physical weight that pressed me down, but also an incredible surge of triumph, a quiet victory against impossible odds. Then I saw him, Captain Reynolds. He was pale, utterly exhausted, lines of strain etched deep into his face, his uniform disheveled, but he was standing tall, unwavering, overseeing the evacuation, his eyes scanning every single person who left that plane, ensuring everyone was safe. Our eyes met across the chaos, a silent acknowledgement of the shared ordeal, a profound unspoken connection forged in the crucible of a crisis. There was no need for words. His gaze spoke volumes, a testament to his resilience, his courage. I walked away from that plane a changed man, forever marked by the day I was working that flight. The captain's haunting words, those words of raw honesty and desperate hope spoken into a trembling intercom, still echo in my mind. They are a testament not just to survival, but to the incredible resilience of the human spirit and the quiet heroism found in the most ordinary people when faced with unimaginable adversity. That flight, that captain, that single day taught me more about life than any spreadsheet ever could, and that's my story. If this journey moved you, if you felt every bump and every moment of hope, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. I've got more powerful stories to share, and you won't want to miss them.